welcome to my video series. Throughout this video and all the other videos that you're going to be watching in this series, I strongly urge you, whenever a question is being asked, to pause, think about the question, try to answer it on your own, and then hit the play button again so that you can see if your answer matches the correct answer. Today, the big question is, do you want to know how functions function? If your answer is yes, then I invite you to join me in taking a trip in the adventurous world of functions. Now, before we get started with what a function is, I'd like you to think about the following example. Suppose you have some sort of a machine. It could be a vending machine. It could be something like a meat grinder, in which you put things inside of it, in this case money for the vending machine or a certain amount of meat for the meat grinder, and then something happens on the inside, whatever that thing is, and out on the other end comes up either the product that you're trying to purchase or the ground meat if you're grinding some meat. So you enter it in some form, money or lump meat, and you get something out in a slightly different form. That particular example shows you exactly what a definition of a function is. It is like a machine. It's a relationship in which you input things, something happens, and some other things come down. So let's put that in mathematical context. Let's just say that whatever you input over here, so input, okay, you can control it, right or not? You can control how much money you put in the vending machine. You can put $1, you can put $100. What comes out of here kind of depends on your input, right or not? And so if you put $1, you can only purchase a certain amount of, contents of the vending machine. Similarly, if you put 1 pound of meat in here, what comes out of here is 1 pound of ground meat, or maybe a little bit less than that. And so the output over here, what comes out, kind of depends on your input. And so if you want to put this in a mathematical context, we can say that if you represent the input by a certain unknown variable, x, it represents either the amount of money in our example, or the amount of meat, or anything that you input into this relation. What comes out of here, the y, is the output. And then the machine is basically the function. So I use the letter f to say that this is the function. Now, let's give this a practical dimension. We're going to go through a certain example, and then from there and on, we're going to see the exact definition of a function in mathematics. So here you have a table that contains, on the one side, the number of correct answers to a certain test, and then here the grade earned for that test. So suppose you have 20 questions, all of equal weight. That is to say, each question is worth the same exact amount of points, which is 5 points per question. Okay? So if the number of correct answers is only 3 out of the 20 questions, what would be the grade earned? As you've noticed, I've paused a little bit to allow you some time to think about the answer. The relationship we're trying to find over here is simple. If you have 20 questions and each question is worth 5 points, then 3 correct answers are going to be worth 3 times 5, which is 15 points. And that 15 is 15 out of how many possible points in total? Obviously, if you answered all 20 questions correctly, you're going to end up with 100 points. So this is 15 out of 100. So we continue filling in this table by finding the relation, the number of correct answers multiplied by the number of points per answer gives me the grade earned. Or if I want to put this in the form of a relation, if x is the number of correct answers, so I'll label this as x, then the grade earned is found, y is found by multiplying the number of correct answers by 5. And so 4 times 5 is 20, 30, and you continue filling in this table. Okay, now that we're done filling the table, we're going to move on to finding out what does that mean from a functional perspective. So I can represent this relation in this form. It's a table that for each input, number of correct answers, okay, I have a certain output, which is the grade that you earn. If I were to represent this in an algebraic fashion, that is to say, just using letters and numbers, I could say that the output we're looking for over here, y, is found by doing what? Okay, now that you're back, it's found by multiplying the input, which is x, by the number of points per question or per correct answer, which is 5. So y equal 5x is basically a relation between you tell me what is the number of correct answers, and I can tell you what grade you have earned. Y equals 5x is an algebraic expression, and we say that because it contains letters, numbers, and an equal sign. It's an algebraic expression, it's an equation, okay, that represents the relation between how many correct answers and what is the grade that you earn. This relation has a very specific and particular property. I ask the following question: could a person answer a certain number of correct answers, whatever that number is, and earn 2 different grades? Of course not. You earn a certain number of correct answers, your grade is going to be a certain numerical value. That is to say, if I input a certain number for x, so for each input, x, input value that is, there exists only one output value, y. That is, by definition, a function. So the definition of function is, it's a relation between 2 quantities in which, for each input, we represent that input by x, there is exactly one output, which is y. Now, to represent a function, we have the algebraic expression. As I said, it's an equation, it's a relation that gives me one particular variable as a function of the other one. And by that I mean, if you want to find how much y is, that very much depends on what x is. And again, x is the number of correct answers, so that number can change according to you, the responder. And so you could have 1 correct answer, 0 correct answers, 20 correct answers. This x is an independent number. By that I mean we can change it, okay, any way we want. We can look at a variety of grades, as you can clearly see, a variety of answers from students, and we see that the first students got 3 answers, 4 answers, this for the second one, etc., etc. Now y, as soon as you set what x is, as soon as you tell me how many correct answers do I have, then y is no longer independent. It cannot. It's not only it depends. It is a function of x. As by that I mean, y depends on the value of x. You can deduce y. You can calculate y. You can find how much y is by simply finding out how much x is. And so y is, as we call it, the dependent variable. Okay. So now there is another question for you. This is an algebraic way of expressing a function. This table also gives me a way of looking at the relation between the number of correct answers and the grade earned. I ask the following question: is there a third way in which we can find a relation or express the relation y equal 5x in a different format. Not the table format, not the algebraic format, but a third format. Okay, maybe I wasn't giving you any hints in the previous question. So in case you've gotten the right answer, just hold on for a second and it will come up in a few seconds in the video. But if you haven't, let me give you a small hint. So if these are x values and these are y values, I can say that when x is equal to 3, then y is equal to 15. So this is the x and this is the y that corresponds to this x. Similarly, when x is equal to 4, y is equal to 20, 6, 30, etc., etc. You can get up to 20 and 100. So these are just a few examples. I listed those as we call them as ordered pairs. What do I mean by ordered pair? True, it's a self-explanatory term. Ordered means in this particular order, so x always comes before the y, and pair means two values, two numbers. This ordered pair, just like all ordered pair, can be represented on what we call a Cartesian plane or a rectangular coordinate system. So I'll give you a few seconds to think about the term rectangular coordinate system or Cartesian plane. Okay, so now that you're back, you must recall that a Cartesian plane or a rectangular coordinate system is basically a system of reference which has a horizontal axis called the x-axis and a vertical axis called the y-axis meeting at a certain point called the origin. Now, the x-axis is divided into equal divisions. Each one of those divisions is 1 unit. The y-axis is divided also into equal divisions, and each one of those divisions can be worth any numerical value that we want, as long as we are consistent. So we can divide the y-axis into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. And we can also divide it into lumps of 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, etc. So all of those, okay, are possibilities for us, okay, similarly for the x-axis. In this particular case, if I choose x, and I need to make a reasonable choice for x. Now x is the number of correct answers, and so the number of correct answers can be 0, 1, 2, etc. all the way. If I want to extend this as much as possible, it extends to maybe 20. Okay, and beyond the 20, of course, if I have 20 questions, there are no 21 correct answers.